welcome to another episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. If you are watching on social media, do us a favor, hit subscribe, share, like, or comment. We will bring you in or give you a shout out on our live show. If you want to get all the episodes, go and do all the things at engagingvirtualmeetings.online, and you can subscribe at one of your top 13 places for podcasts. If you want to come join me in person or on virtual, the Engaging Conference is October 1, 2, and 3 in 2024. You can register and get a free ticket at engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON, or you could be one of our VIPs, or for the first time ever, you could attend in person. So we're going to do the hybrid. I just love... That's why I got the glasses. I'm going to introduce this next guest. And this next guest to me was introduced to me by the one and only Deborah Eckerlin of Gold Chat Live. What else? She also has her food podcast, so check that out. This gentleman is the founder of ZAVANT Enterprises for 15 years. He toured as a mentalist, apparently reading minds, predicting the future, and instant hypnosis. He's currently brought in to share his secrets with sales teams. So listen up if you are in sales. Delivery teams, anyone who needs to deliver results in high stakes environments. Let's bring in the one and only Jonathan Pritchard. Wow.
Amazing.
I know every intro for you is like that, Jonathan, isn't it?
That I approve.
Oh,
Thank you.
we were talking pre-show about production and all these things. I can't wait to geek out a little bit about production. I love the background. Let's see, the game where is the poster on the right that says the game of imagination? Yeah, what is that?
That is one of my mind reading shows. And it's kind of how I like to frame what people are there to experience, because a lot of people are like, are you really for reals? Are you psychic? Like, what's the deal? And I found myself saying, it's just a game of imagination. Let's just be playful here. I'm going to ask you to imagine some things. And in this world of imagination, we're going to have fun. And then I thought, you know what? That's a pretty awesome title for a show. And gameofimagination.com was available. I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then COVID happens. So that show came to a screeching halt.
It was an in-person show then.
It was. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well, and again, I think I recently shared with you, Jonathan, that our friend Trig Watson brought me to the Magic Castle, which is the private club for magicians in LA. And let me tell you, even for me as an extrovert, it was an overwhelming experience, as it should be. And it was really, and it was still cool. It was still unbelievably cool. And I want to go back in April. I'm going back to LA in April, and Trig said he's either going to host me, or I'll just give you a pass because you know what the hell you're doing now. So
yeah, that's great.
So speaking of which, Jonathan, do us a favor and take a moment to share with my friends who don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
Hi there. So let's see. Long story medium is that my name is Jonathan Pritchard, and for 15 years, I've traveled the world doing an interactive mind reading show, which is kind of like a magic show specializing in mind reading tricks. So I toured the world, worked with the troops stationed overseas, performed at hundreds of colleges, and gone out for TV, all that kind of stuff. So basically every way that you could want to check off the success box as a performer, like that's what I did. And I love meeting people after the shows, and people are always asking me, so how do you think about this? How do you think about that? And then a couple of years after that, I start getting emails back saying, hey, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts about this or the other thing. It made a huge difference, and here's what I've been doing since then. I just needed to say thank you. And that was kind of my first peek into, wait a minute, all these communication skills and psychological principles and techniques I'm using on stage to distract people from their problems for an hour wait a minute, I could help them solve their issues permanently and get cooler problems for the next round of things. So that's kind of how I transitioned from being a performer into being a consultant and a trainer, coach, business owner, and that just took off. And I realized I'm helping more people more effectively
Yeah.
than as a performer. So I'm still doing all of those things, but it's all driven by the communication psychology and fundamental persuasion applied to high stake business environments rather than on stage for laughs and distraction.
You know, that's the funny part, I think, of value, the value chain is that while entertainment has high value, especially in America, that's what after touring and traveling internationally, one of my conclusions is that America is obsessed with entertainment, probably more so than almost any other country, although many other countries are obsessed with their entertainment. And the next part of the value chain, though, is this either edutainment or education, right? That hasn't entertainment. I think there's a lot of value in that because people are so used to entertainment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even this like podcast, you want to up some of the production around it because people are used to watching things like Netflix and other stuff. I think the only cool part that social media and other things have really done though is created the lower bar is okay for production if you can replace it with a super high level of authenticity.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what this is, right? This thing is live. Like if I fall over, right, and trip over in the middle of and that's part of the interview.
Yeah.
And it's not going backwards. It's not being edited out. And I think there's something around that. I don't know, Jonathan, talk to me about authenticity and how does it fit inside of your work?
For me, authenticity, I usually laugh at the word because it's kind of like you can't help but be who you are. So to me, authenticity is less about adding something and more about removing the parts you think you needed to add to be authentic. It's like authentic suffering, or just like that's such a weird idea to me. So it to me is more about alignment with your reason for being, the work you are putting your energy into, the message that you're sharing. Is all of that in perfect alignment, or are you deviating from your highest goals in order to trade that out for more engagement or more dollars at the expense of living out of alignment with your reason for existing in this universe in the first place? So it's more about, have I established my life and business in a way that helps me sleep well at night?
Oh,
Most people can't say that. When they stay up worrying about this or the other thing, or I should have stood up for myself, and all sorts of components of their life or business are out of whack, which creates a lot of friction, which is experienced as lack of authenticity.
well, I love this authenticity subtraction because I do believe that. I think that I tell that I'm a president elect for the National Speakers Association, and one of the top ways to engage people is authenticity. And I think you're right about the subtraction, which is, I tell people too, when you try to impersonate another speaker, that's kind of the thing you need to subtract. Because you'll
Yep.
never be that speaker. You never will be. You never, no matter how much. I mean, you can do parodies. You can do what do we call those characters,
Yep.
caricatures, but it's
Yep.
not you. Everyone knows it's not you. In fact, I love one of the quotes I learned last year at Influence, the top conference for National Speakers Association, is that a top speaker who's a Hall of Fame speaker, he just got in the Hall of Fame, just said, "I knew that I had something. I arrived when the client said stop quoting other people." If we wanted to hear from them, we would have hired them. We hired you.
Yep.
That's really powerful.
Yeah. Oh man, that is a whole powder keg for me, because that is one of the reasons why I got into business consulting. Because as I wanted to level up my own business as a performer, and I didn't realize yet what I was sitting on the pile of value of being a communicator, I'm reading these business books, and every book or presentation are made up stories about people that don't exist, and they're telling me stories or anecdotes from somebody else.
Yeah.
With me and the things I can demonstrate, I can show you in an interactive way the principle through an experience you're never going to forget. So I realized I'm going to eat everybody's lunch, because any speaker who says, "Well, you know what Dr. Maya Angelou said about this," and I'm going to quote somebody else. Exactly. Why did I bring you in? I should go get her on stage.
Yeah.
So it's the storytelling about other people instead of having something of value yourself. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna blow them out of the water. And then on top of that is the toxic authenticity, which is,
Hmm.
listen, man, I'm just being myself here. Like, yeah, but yourself might be a jerk. Maybe dial that part down a little bit. So authenticity can often be an excuse to
Mm.
do the work of becoming a better communicator and being more effective at what you do, which is why one of my mentors was saying, when you're on stage, it's not a character, it's you without the distracting parts. That way
Oh,
it'll
that's a
be
good one.
way more natural. Dial up the parts that help you communicate the idea you're trying to get across, and then leave the burping, Netflix watching, belly scratching version of yourself on the couch at home. Bring the on stage flavor of you, and it'll feel much more natural, and people will fall in love with the you that is there. Because for a while I had a stage name, Johnny ZAVANT, and I had that as a buffer for my college work, so that if some college student was like, I love you, I want to find out everything, that there'd be that air gap between my real life.
Hmm.
And that gave me a real good view into people falling in love with the character instead
Mm.
of the person, when
Mm.
they think they're both the same thing. And why a lot of performers spiral out, because they feel like the audience is in love with the character and the person doesn't get any of that love and attention. And that creates a real weird dynamic where you can spiral out pretty easily. So if you kind of remove those artificial layers
Yeah.
between you and your audience, it creates a more authentic connection. And you're now loved and appreciated for who you are from the people who want that, rather than you trying to torture yourself into a configuration for what you think people want, who will never want what you are. So now you're loved by people you don't even like, and that's a head job, right? So it's just all sorts of weird, real weird dynamics are in play if you don't know how to be yourself at scale.
Well, I think that this is a really challenging part. You without the distraction parts. I think there's one part which is right, which is well, for every audience, I'm going to dial up something and dial down something because I got to figure out who they are and try and meet them somewhere where they're at. There's this other part though, which is that burping Netflixing type of thing is like that's actually gaining traction for some audiences. If that's your audience, right? If that's the
Yep.
audience you want, then you can dial that back up. But I think that that is a real challenging part to figure out how much to dial up and down to an audience without sacrificing yourself, your core self, right? Whatever
Mm-hmm.
the core self is. So
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it though. I haven't thought about it that way, but it just shows how challenging it is to figure out who to be on stage, right? If you have to go in and figure out what are your distracting parts.
Yeah.
And
I think of it as like unintentional communication,
mm,
because you're communicating all the time.
mm,
How aware of that process are you?
yeah.
And most people aren't aware of their verbal fillers. They're not aware of their hand gestures. So they just get in the habit of doing double handed gestures the whole time. And you just want to smack their knuckles. So it's all those basic, exactly. It's all the basic communication stuff that an outside coach can readily identify and say, you're being distracting,
Yeah.
stop doing this. I didn't even know I was doing that. Like, yeah, well, that's why you're paying me. And like those
Yes.
verbal fillers, the best way to solve those is to have the audience boo at you every time you do it.
Oh, I've never tried that.
Straight up, nothing works better because it's massive negative reinforcement. And you instantly go, I never want to do anything that makes that happen ever again, because those fillers are there as a non-conscious time filler as I figure out what I want to say. So you're not even aware that you're doing it. So that huge negative reinforcement brings it to conscious awareness, and you go, okay, cool. I know not to do that now. But if you're reviewing the tape later that night or tomorrow,
Yeah.
you go, oh, I didn't even know I was doing it that much.
Yeah.
Every other word is, like, oh, I need to fix that. But then tonight, when you're back on stage, what happens? Um, it's too far between. It's like trying to train a dog by rewarding it 2 days later.
Oh, it doesn't connect. Never connects.
Never connects it. We're not much smarter than that. So
Wait, no,
you need
I gotta ask, Jonathan, have you ever done this? Have you ever told the audience to boo you on a filler word?
Oh yeah, that was my dad went through seminary school, and he
Oh,
said that's how they would train you out of verbal fillers. And
ouch.
in high school,
Oh,
I took debate because I think almost entirely in pictures. And if I could draw you a picture, I can explain complicated ideas.
yeah,
But
yeah.
back then, it would take me 4 or 5 days to translate this clear image in my head into words that I could say to you. So I recognized debate will force me to learn how to communicate like this. So yeah, we had cowbells that everybody in the class would ring. People would throw stuff at you, all sorts of different ways. But the heart of it is immediate negative feedback that, hey, you're doing the thing again. Oh, I should stop doing that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm trying to put it on here. Have you ever used Yoodli? Yoodli.
No, I haven't.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to bring it on screen. I may not be able to get it today because I'm trying to capture the window. And Yoodli is AI that listens into your mic local on your computer, and it will tell you things like percentage talk time. Are you monologuing? That's my favorite, from The Incredibles. And then he started monologuing, right?
Yep. Yep.
The pacing. So one of my challenges is that by default, my pace is actually pretty high. It's about
Yeah.
180 words per minute if I get going. And then it's giving me and uhs as a filler word. And it was one of the top ways, Jonathan. For 7 months I ran Udly, and I was able to get or to be like the number one filler word to drop to number 7
That's great.
because it's giving me real time feedback. And after every virtual meeting, it would give me a report. And you can go back and play your virtual meeting. So I think this is where this is a case where I felt like AI made the world better.
Yeah. There's
Uh,
I am familiar with a tool called Avoma, which does essentially the same thing. It'll transcribe talk time, verbal fillers, who's asking which questions, and it's really hyper focused on sales enablement. So
yeah.
it helps you coach and train your sales team at scale without having to watch all of the calls at speed. So you can identify the my favorite game in sales
Mm.
is closing the largest deal possible by saying as little as possible.
Oh, wow. Okay, what's the shortest you've ever been?
Oh, like 20%.
20% of the talk time?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the guidelines, at least in an initial meeting, though, which is you should be listening 80% of the time.
Exactly.
And you should be asking questions.
Yep. So if the balance of are you asking the most questions or are they asking the most questions is a good indicator of who's in control. And there's an interactive demonstration that I do from the world of mentalism that I present the audience with a whole bunch of objects. And by a process of elimination, we whittle it down to just one. And then I open the big paper reveal, and handwritten on it is the staple gun would be too expensive for your business. The can of Red Bull wouldn't get there in time. And I'm listing all the reasons why everything that was eliminated would not have worked. But the one thing that will work for your situation is the one that we're left with.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody goes, how did you know that that was the one? Because I'm asking questions like, do you want to eliminate the left or the right? Go for it. So the audience feels like they're in control because they're the ones calling the shots. But really, I'm in control because I'm asking them to make a decision. And the person presenting the options is the person who's framing the whole interaction. And that is a dynamic that, again, people hint at. They can see it kind of saying the person asking the questions is in control, but the why that is usually framed as an authority thing.
Mm-hmm.
The cop is interrogating you. I'm the one asking questions here. So every business book is understanding it at such a thin, superficial level, not understanding the psychological impact of the person asking the questions is framing the entire experience and what it means. So that's why my sales system built on that world of mentalism, you're not going to find anything close to it anywhere. It just blows everything out of the water.
Well,
If I say
it's
so myself, and I do.
I didn't say it for you yet. But you remind me of, right, a technique which is called double bind, which is the illusion of choice. You give
Yes.
someone a choice. Do you want to meet me in half hour, 30 minutes? It's the same choice. You don't care which one they pick. But letting the inmates run the asylum, giving people choice is super powerful.
Yeah.
Even if it's an illusion, it's super powerful because I believe too, most audiences want to be in control. Most audiences want to feel like they have a say, like they're influencing what's going on. And this is why, like, select a quest and all these other things, like polls, are still useful and popular. Okay, so now
Exactly.
I want to know, Jonathan, what do you coach people on for virtual meetings? If they have to do a sales presentation or a presentation on virtual, what are some of your top tips that you give them?
Remarkably, it starts at the basics and works our way up from there. A lot of times it's difficult to imagine just how bad somebody can get it. So you think I'm going to come in and talk about the nuances of this and timing and voice inflection, but the camera is on the table looking up their nose. And you're like, all right, let's talk about camera placement first. And then having dedicated lighting so that you don't have constant exposure issues that causes your camera to lose focus. And so it's just really covering the basics of, hey, don't put yourself in front of the window so that it blows you out and it looks like you're in a hostage negotiation and you're trying to stay anonymous. Let's talk about that. So we cover the basics first, then we can go into the higher level details of communicating to a lens that is really freaky to people who
Mm.
might have gotten used to public speaking or small group presentations because, oh, I've got the people there and I can feed off their energy. Like, okay, vampire, your audience is not there to feed you. You were there to deliver value and energy to them. If sales is the transfer of enthusiasm, why in the world are you leaving your success up to the disposition of your audience? I don't care how my audience feels. I know how they're going to feel at the end of our time together. They're going to be jazzed as all get out. They're going to be stoked. They have to do what I'm asking them to do because they'll see it's the best way to do it ever. So that's on me. So I don't care. It's on you as the presenter to dictate the experience that your audience is there to have. So I don't care if you're in a room by yourself with bright lights and an unblinking camera. That's your portal to connect with your audience that you may never see. Man, I tell you what, back in the day of the COVID times when the whole world is forced into this,
Yes.
I did dozens and dozens of interactive mind reading shows for college students
Yes.
who didn't want to turn on their cameras, so
Yep.
they wouldn't. So it would be 60 black squares and me. And if I were that energy vampire presenter, I'd be like, "Oh, this is awful. They're not feeding me their energy. I can't see my audience. I'm not getting paid to take from my audience. I don't care. 60 black squares, awesome. Let's go. You're going to have a great time." Although the one thing that was super weird were the people who would join Zoom from their phone, then walk across campus with their video live because their video's swinging as they're walking across campus. Then they walk up, they go in the elevator, get out at their apartment, put their phone on the counter with the camera facing up. And then I'm watching them make dinner from the perspective of me laying on the counter, looking up and seeing ingredients go by, right? Like I could not make sense out of what I was seeing while so I'm doing the show on autopilot at this point, and then the other 80% of my brain is going, what is going on? What are they doing? What is happening? So yeah, that was the distracting part to me from doing so many of those shows. Exactly,
You were
that's
helping.
exactly what you would see, but then random motion. And since we're half T-Rexes anyway and our vision's based on motion, I constantly would be looking at the monitor going, what is happening? Yeah, and this piece of bread would go across and then a knife would go over here. It's like, are you making dinner? It's like, yeah. I'm like, well, thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate it.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah, we
That
can cover the basics and then all the way up to really advanced stuff like how not to let that derail your entire presentation at levels that go way beyond what most people think, down to when you're screen sharing, make sure that your camera is positioned such that when you're looking at the screen you're sharing, the tiny little video of you that defaults to the right hand side, it looks like you're looking at your material. But if you're using the opposite screen and it looks like you're looking away from your material,
in
you're
your mirror.
communicating to your audience that this is not interesting and it's not worth their attention. So we can get crazy detailed and nitpicky about the smallest things. It's more about where are you, client, in your journey of developing your communication skills. I want to meet you there and then get you refined as quickly as possible.
Well, that reminds me of this, which is one of my speech coaches, right? Reminded me of this. So again, I use this tricky system. This is what I really think people should be doing too, which is get into your slides, right? And this is a feature that's in Zoom. Less than 1% of the people use it. But the second part was being able to do this. When I present this slide, right? What I'm trying to communicate, Jonathan, is that I've been online a long time, right? So people Prodigy, I said, Prodigy, and this is the move I make. Prodigy is the first graphical based meeting space online 37 years ago when modems used to make noise. And I'm actually waiting to make a noise. I want to push a button, right? And make the
Right.
fax noise, make the modem noise. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But he really said this part. He said this part of me turning, because all I'm doing is turning, and I'm looking at a green screen right now. That's my
Mm-hmm.
reality. That's what people don't know. But to
Yep.
you, the audience, it looks like I'm looking at this baseball player.
Exactly. And appearing natural in a
Yes.
highly unnatural dynamic
Yes.
is not a natural thing to do.
Yeah, and here's the other one. Here's the other one that I can do. Right. So I do have the spotlights, and I think they are correct now. And I'm looking on the live streams. So when I do this, so if I said, "Hey, Jonathan, will you please share like your next tip with me?" So now if I actually do this, I can actually looking at you, And I have to, but I have to have another screen. So just for the people to understand what I'm doing here, I'm looking at this monitor over here where I can see Jonathan, so I can still watch his body reactions.
Mhm.
And again, not of you are going to have the setup, but in the interview, I might actually look like I'm watching. You know, when you're on stage and two people are doing an interview, quite often the interviewer will ask a question, right, and then turn to you. And so these are the things that I think people should be thinking about in virtual and hybrid, going, how do we recreate some of these things from the real world? Okay,
Right.
I have an impromptu request, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
My impromptu request. You're a magician and a mentalist. So I want to just show you the trick that Jeff Evans, I'm going to give a shout out to my good friend Jeff Evans gave me.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he gave me this, which is like I actually used this recently and we talked about doing the impossible. You have to have the mindset, right? So balancing, right, this dollar bill on your thumb, would be impossible except, right, when you have, see if I can do this correctly, right, leverage. So now, it looks like when you're doing things in an unusual way, you can have leverage and you can do things that look like magic. All right. Do you have any magic or mentalist handy that you'd be willing to
Ooh.
demonstrate?
Let me see. I always have
That's not even
something
a
like
Oh,
five or six
we
decks of
did not
cards.
architect this, by the way. I did not tell Jonathan before this, so I just want to let you know that
Yep.
this
Nope.
is authentic.
I like I said, on my desk at all times, to the consternation of my wife,
Bless her heart.
are just cards everywhere, everywhere, all the
Everywhere,
time.
decks and decks and decks.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
got to destroy decks in most right in most characters.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So I'm looking through, and based on the time that we spent talking, I think I know exactly which card in here that you will stop me at based on timing and all that kind of stuff. So as I go through, I'm just going to drop cards, and you're going to stop me at the six of diamonds. If I've grabbed it, it's out of play. We don't care about it. It'll be the next one, right? So you're going to stop me at the six diamonds. You just say stop anytime that you want, and I'll stop dealing cards out.
But you do you want me to say stop at the six of diamonds, right?
Well, I just want you to say stop, and it will be the six diamonds.
Oh, okay, great. Stop.
Okay. Later, when you think about this, and you will, you're going to go, all right, what if I had said it stop maybe one or two cards later? That would have changed everything. Right. So I want to give you that chance now to have that conversation with yourself so that you're not mad at me later. So maybe most people stop at about that point. So if you want me to go a couple more cards, I will. I'm not happy until you're happy. So your call. Stay here or keep going.
Three more cards.
Three more.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So yeah, it would have been the eight of hearts. So good, two, and three. So those three, not it. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. So you stop me at this card, which weirdly has a blue back, and every other card in the deck has a red back. So it could have been any of those cards, but you stopped me at this card, the only one with the blue back, which is the six of diamonds.
Like diamonds in the sky, shine bright like a diamond.
I broke my live stream with that. That's so good. That was Diamonds by Rihanna.
I love it.
Beautiful.
You're never getting monetized again.
I was never monetized to begin with. Memo to self. Oh my God. Well, great. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. We're heading close to the end of the time here. So let's talk about this. Jonathan, you're a mentalist. You pretend to read minds and predict the future. So predict the future. Predict the future of virtual and hybrid. What do you think is going to happen?
I think it will become higher amplitude.
Mm.
In that, I mean that the ones that know how to do it right become even more valuable, whereas most of them won't know how to do it right. So the general perception will be that it's no longer valuable. But the few people who get it will get way more out of it. And then we're into the Pareto, however you say that. I've only read it.
80-20.
Right? The 80-20 rule, right? So the 20% of folks who really know how to do this properly will be getting massive value out of it. Whereas the perception will generally be that we're done with that now. We're all back to in-person only. Or the virtual people will be like, well, it's only virtual. We're going to ignore in person. And those two worlds will be missing out on the folks who know how to navigate both of those worlds separately and together, serving the audience, which should be the pinnacle. How will I best serve my audience? Should that be in person, virtual, or both? Then go do the thing that helps you accomplish your goal the best.
I love this part because I personally, in the last year and now, am in this battle, and the battle is right. I fully invested in virtual, and then the world come back to normal, and so it is swinging that way. And I'm in the meetings professional industry, right? I'm a member of Meetings Professional International, 15-year member. And many of them are throwing away hybrid after learning so much about it in such a short amount of time. And I think they're missing the opportunity. Now, I understand it's quote unquote easier to design for one thing or another, but meeting planners don't like easy, to be honest. They design these complicated meetings, and they have to do so every year to provide more value. And so the other thing, I've heard two major complaints. It's too expensive and it's too hard. And I developed this thing called hybrid in a box, Jonathan, to solve what I felt like the number one problem with hybrid is that it took me 8+ hours or more to prepare for a hybrid because you got to plug in everything back in and then test it all. So I built a box and put it all in there, and now 90% of the plug stayed in, so I can actually roll into a venue 30 minutes and start producing hybrid. And now it's all off-the-shelf material, which solves the other problem, right? It's mainly when you pay me, it's pay me for my time. Right. And to bring this equipment and to know how to use it. And so there is no excuse for a bad hybrid. And I've seen people spend a boatload of money on bad hybrid.
Yeah.
They're clocking 20, 30, 40, 50 plus grand for the in-house, hotel AV and not providing, I think, an engaging hybrid when it gets there. So I really love that you say that. And I think I'm willing to be the rebel. I've always been willing to be the rebel, to be honest, Jonathan. What you said helps me reiterate and go back into dedicate myself to showing that hybrid is affordable, and hybrid doesn't have to be complicated, right? I understand it's complicated for the normal person. I understand that.
Yeah.
And when you work with great people, they can make it look easy. Right, just like speaking. Right, when you get a coach, right, you can make it look easy. It doesn't have to be complicated, and overall, what I've been trying to tell people is you get the power of in person, right, the energy of in person, with the reach of virtual, and that's what really powerful hybrid is and can be.
Right, and it's all about that leverage because you have the in person, because doing in person and virtual simultaneously increases the complexity in a geometric way. Yep. Or you could be out of phase just a little bit and then broadcast the virtual the next day, and then you've got full attention to it. So it's kind of like that leverage of we did the thing and we did it in a way that will enable us to get more value out of it and serve more people who didn't get to be in that space at that time. So the virtual helps transcend physical space. You can reach people globally, and it helps transcend time such that it is now available into perpetuity rather than folks who were there on that day. So that's a superpower. You could be everywhere all at once forever. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, for almost no additional cost.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of the top speakers, Grant Cardone, Pete Vargas, a lot of these other people are just talking about. You can invent your own stage.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like from my magic mind, I think of it as when you're first starting, holding a deck of cards feels difficult.
Right.
The simplest thing ever. You're just like, how do I do? Where do my fingers go? What do I do?
Right.
If you don't know any better, everything is tough. So why not start by doing it the good way so that you're setting yourself up for success? Because you could go to a magic shop and buy a trick deck of cards that does one trick because it's built into it. Okay, that's easy and it gets you performing this afternoon, but it's actually harder because somebody brings their own deck of cards and they go, here, do it. Well, now you can't do the thing because, well, it's not my tricky deck of cards. Sorry. Or you learn the hard way of sleight of hand and doing this with a normal deck of cards. And now you're free to perform anywhere there's a deck of cards. You could now engage audiences. So the hard way is actually the easy way in the long run, whereas the easy way builds in limitations you don't realize are there until you try to go beyond them and realize I have to unlearn everything I thought I know to restart on what is now the harder path. It just, any industry you're talking about, the easy way will always cost you more. It will always take longer than just doing it right the hard way the first time.
All right. Well, here, I love this. I love what you said too. If you don't know any better, everything is tough. I add my corollary is just because it's tough doesn't mean don't do it. And the last part to it is tough becomes easy when you do it enough.
That's
Ooh,
it. I like that.
Hold on, I gotta write that down. That's so good. I just made that up. Tough becomes easy. It's true though. It's like virtual is certainly that way. I thought driving, like I learned how to drive an RV, and the first time you drive an RV, you're expanding yourself so big. But eventually, we're humans. We adapt to that, and you get used to it, and you stop running over, mailboxes because you start to have an awareness of how big you are. Tough becomes easy when you do it enough.
I like that. Yep.
Okay, so here I got the speed round. You ready for the speed round?
Born ready.
Okay, speed round. Favorite virtual platform?
Ooh, Zoom, weirdly.
Oh wait, hold on a second.
It is capable.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Favorite virtual tool?
Ooh, camera.
Which camera?
I was using a Sony A6400 with a crazy awesome lens. It was 1.4 prime lens, so that it had great depth of the field and crazy fast zoom, autofocus. But now I'm using an Elgato face cam because that lens is now joining me on the road so that I can get crazy awesome images while I tour.
Ooh. Favorite best virtual speaker?
Best virtual speaker. I've got to say you're doing a pretty good job of pulling out in front.
Aw, so kind. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show. Oh, so many. Favorite TV show. Oh man. Yeah, I can't think of one.
Really?
Yeah, because none are coming to mind. And I know whatever I said would be like, why didn't I say that?
Old 80s retro TV show.
Yeah, G.I. Joe's.
Oh,
cartoon. Yeah, for sure. This is a G.I. Joe's tattoo. So
you're committed.
Oh yeah, full on.
You're committed. Okay, favorite movie. How about a movie?
Favorite movie is Koyaanisqatsi. It's a pretentious art film. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. You get an API point, Asian Pacific Islander point for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What are you going to eat for dinner tonight?
Tonight, probably leftover pork chops.
And last question. What's your wish for 2024?
More trade shows. That's it.
Or maybe it should be this one. There you go. More trade shows.
That's
right.
One.
Your website is ROI Trade Shows also, right, Jonathan?
That is it. I take the performing skills, combine it with the live events and the consulting and marketing messaging, shove it all in a blender, and then stand me in the booth. And I will be your big blue screaming monkey that attendees absolutely cannot ignore. They have to come over to see what's going on. I'm going to give them such a good time that they will never forget it. And your business name will be along for the ride for the rest of their life.
Oh man, well, there's two parts. I want to introduce you later on. I'll introduce you. I believe it's one of my friends is running the cameras that will evaluate the audience that's in front of you. So it runs
Cool.
video the whole time in the expo and gives back the analytics to your client. So that's a cool another feature.
That's
Uh,
cool.
and you're probably busy. You're what are you doing on the 26th through the 28th? This is on the spot.
Of February,
Yeah, you already booked.
I have learned to never say anything without looking at the calendar.
The calendar.
26th through the 28th. As far as I know, I don't have anything virtual or in person
Wow.
booked. But also, I've learned I have to confer with the wife. We have a 20-month-old daughter, and
Oh.
sometimes we'll put it on the calendar, but then it won't show up on each other's. And they're like, you put something on the calendar. I was already booked. I didn't see it. So I always have to sit down and confer before confirming. So yeah, what's going on then?
Well, I was just gonna see. I have almost no control on this part, but I'm gonna be at Training Magazine, and we're doing a part inside the expo. So
Cool.
we could talk about it post show and to see if this is a fit. So not a paid gig, right? But it might be good if you were free and available, and you could bring the family to Disney World. Oh,
I was just there.
Yes.
Like last week, I
Oh.
was doing a speaking engagement at a college there just outside Orlando. It's like my 7th year back there, which
Oh.
was great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for the opportunity. And again, I look forward to doing that. This year, by the way, I'm working with Trig. I'm not sure if we're going to do it yet, but he's working on part of a hybrid magic show. So I
He's
hope
fantastic with that. It's super cool.
that's why I hope I got the right person, and we're going to talk about it. If he does, I want you to tune in and be in the live audience, whether you're virtual or in person,
That'd be
because
great.
Trig does some stuff. That's we're going to leave it at that. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Jonathan, thank you again. Make sure and check out Jonathan's link. And by the way, he gave a whole collection of really awesome videos. If you want to become a better speaker or presenter, go check out Jonathan Pritchard's stuff. Thanks again to Jonathan.
My pleasure, John. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, this is John Chen, and we've just been doing the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with Jonathan Pritchard. Really cool presentation information about using, the ability to be a magician and mentalist on stage and apply that to your communication skills, to your trade show, where, right? I mean, you pay all this money for that ROI. Why don't you maximize the ROI? And that's what Jonathan has converted his magic to doing. Again, take a moment to share, subscribe, share, like, and comment. Oh, I do have who is it? We had Sylvia, who was watching on Facebook Live today. I just want to give you a shout out. Again, if you want to subscribe, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Subscribe to an Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, available on 13 different platforms. Make sure and register for the Engaging Conference, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/con, C-O-N, October 1, 2, and 3 in 2024, live here in Seattle, as well as the Zoom VIP ticket and the virtual live stream ticket that you can get here too. And do you want to be the next Jonathan Pritchard? Well, you should check it out. Go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, select interview, and you could be the next guest here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We will see you next time.
Don't we start people and keep whole people? Show you God how.